Have you ever noticed how the smartest financial advice sounds completely insane when you actually think about it? Save your money, build an emergency fund, keep cash for a rainy day. We've all heard this 1,000 times. It's practically gospel in the personal finance world. But here's what nobody tells you. While you're dutifully saving your money in a bank account, you're actually getting poorer every single day. I know that sounds dramatic, but here at Simple Money, we've watched countless people follow traditional savings advice perfectly. They do everything right. They save 10% of their income. They watch their account balance grow, and they still can't get ahead. Today, I'm going to reveal why saving money is actually one of the worst financial decisions you can make, and more importantly, what you should be doing instead. Here's what's really happening while you sleep at night. Let's say you have $10,000 sitting in your savings account, you feel good about it, you feel responsible, you've got that emergency fund everyone talks about. But here's the uncomfortable truth. That $10,000 is losing value every single hour. Not because the bank is stealing from it, not because of fees, because of something far more insidious. Inflation. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've heard about inflation before. It's that boring thing economists talk about on the news. But let me explain what inflation actually means for your money in terms that'll make your stomach drop. Imagine you're holding a block of ice. That's your savings. Inflation is the sun beating down on it. Every day, your ice block gets a little smaller, a little less solid, a little less useful. You're not losing the ice. It's still there. But it's melting, shrinking, becoming less valuable with every passing moment. The average inflation rate over the last decade has been around 3% per year. Some years higher, some years lower. Recently, we've seen rates spike to 7 or 8%. Here's what that actually means. If inflation is running at 3% and your savings account pays you 0.5% interest, you're losing 2.5% of your money's purchasing power every single year. Not on paper. In reality, that $10,000 you saved, after 1 year, it can only buy what $9,750 could buy when you started. After 5 years, it's the equivalent of about $8,800. You didn't spend a penny, but you lost over $1,000 in real value. This is the game nobody explains when they tell you to save money. They're technically correct. Your account balance goes up, but your actual wealth goes down. Let me introduce you to what I call the melting money illusion. This is the first and most important concept to understand. Your brain is wired to see numbers go up and feel good. It's evolutionary. More equals better. Bigger number equals more security. But inflation breaks this ancient wiring completely. Here's why this matters. When you see your savings account go from $10,000 to $10,200 over a year, your brain releases a tiny hit of dopamine, progress, growth, success. But what really happened? You earned $200 in interest. Meanwhile, inflation at 3% meant you needed $10,300 just to break even. You actually lost $100 in purchasing power. Your brain sees plus 200. Reality shows minus 100. Think about it this way. Imagine you're on a treadmill that's slowly speeding up. You start walking at 2 miles per hour. You feel like you're moving forward, making progress, but the treadmill is set to 3 miles per hour. You're actually moving backward, slowly, imperceptibly, but definitely. That's exactly what's happening with traditional savings. You feel like you're winning because the number gets bigger, but you're losing ground every single day. The psychology here is particularly cruel. Humans are notoriously bad at understanding slow, invisible losses. We can see and feel sudden drops, a market crash, an unexpected expense. That registers as danger, but a slow erosion, a gradual decay in purchasing power. Our brains aren't built to perceive that threat. It's like trying to watch a tree grow. The change is real, but it happens so slowly that we never actually see it happening. This is why millions of people feel like they're doing everything right but can't get ahead. They are saving, they are being responsible, but they're playing a game where the rules guarantee they'll lose. The second concept I call the safety paradox. This one is especially insidious because it exploits our deepest financial fears. We save money because it feels safe. A savings account is FDIC insured. The balance doesn't fluctuate. You can't lose your principal, it's the responsible choice. But here's what makes this a paradox. The safest feeling option is actually guaranteed to make you poorer. Let me explain. Safety in finance isn't about avoiding all risk. It's about preserving your purchasing power, your ability to buy the things you need. A savings account preserves your account balance, but it destroys your purchasing power. Meanwhile, investments that feel risky actually protect you from the real danger. Inflation, think about it this way. Imagine you're on a sinking ship. The deck feels solid under your feet, stable, safe, but the whole ship is going down. The lifeboat looks scary. It's bobbing in the waves, unstable, risky, but which one is actually safer? The stable deck on a sinking ship or the unstable lifeboat that'll keep you afloat? Traditional savings is the deck. It feels stable, but the whole thing is sinking beneath you. Investments are the lifeboat. They feel risky. They move around, but they actually keep you above water. Here's a specific example. Let's say you had $20,000 in January 2020. You had two choices. Option A, put it in a high-yield savings account earning 0.7%. Option B, invest it in a simple stock market index fund. Over the next 4 years, inflation averaged about 4% per year. Your savings account earned a total of about $600. You now have $20,600. But to have the same purchasing power you started with, you'd need about $23,300. You lost $2,700 in real terms. Meanwhile, despite market volatility, that index fund likely grew to somewhere around $28,000. After inflation, that's about $24,700 in today's money, a real gain of $4,700. Same starting point, same time period, but one choice left you significantly poorer while feeling safe. The other made you wealthier while feeling risky. The person who felt safe lost money. The person who felt nervous made money. That's the safety paradox. Here's the third pattern. I call it the emergency fund trap. Now, don't get me wrong, having money for emergencies is important. But here's what happens in practice. Financial gurus tell you to save 6 months of expenses. Let's say that's $20,000 for you. So you diligently build up that $20,000 emergency fund. You feel responsible, protected. But then what happens? You never touch it because it's for emergencies only. Years pass. That money just sits there, melting, losing value to inflation, all while you tell yourself you're being financially responsible. Here's what makes this a trap. The fear of not having an emergency fund keeps you from doing anything else with that money. You're psychologically locked in. Meanwhile, real emergencies are actually pretty rare. Most people go years without needing to tap their emergency fund, but inflation happens every single day. Think about it this way. You're paying a massive insurance premium. That premium is the inflation you lose every year on that idle cash. You're paying 2 or 3% annually just to have money sitting there for an emergency that may never come. Now, here's where this gets interesting. There are much better ways to be prepared for emergencies that don't involve letting inflation eat your money alive. You could keep 2 months of expenses in cash. That's still a buffer, but then put the other 4 months worth into investments that can grow faster than inflation. In a real emergency, you have time to sell investments if needed. 2 months gives you that runway. Or you could have a credit card with a decent limit, or a home equity line of credit. These are backup options that cost you nothing while you're not using them, unlike cash sitting idle, which costs you inflation every single day. But we don't think about it this way because we've been taught that cash equals safety, and anything else equals irresponsibility. The reality is more nuanced. Cash provides immediate liquidity, but it provides that liquidity at an enormous long-term cost. For most people, that cost is far higher than the benefit. The fourth concept is what I call the comparison blindness. Here's what I mean. When you look at your savings account, you compare it to itself. Last month you had $8,000. This month you have $8,200. Progress. But you never compare it to what else you could have done with that money because you can't see the alternate reality, you can't see the path not taken. This is a massive blind spot, and it's costing you a fortune. Let me give you a concrete example. Meet Sarah. She's been saving aggressively for 5 years. She's got $30,000 in her savings account. She's proud of it, and she should be. Saving is hard. But here's what Sarah doesn't see. If she had invested that money as she saved it over those 5 years, even in something simple like a total stock market index fund, she'd likely have somewhere around $40,000 or more right now. That's $10,000 she'll never get back. $10,000 that didn't just disappear. It never materialized because she chose safety over growth. Sarah can't see this loss because it's not in her account, it's in the alternate universe where she made a different choice. This is why comparison blindness is so dangerous. You can see your wins, you can't see your opportunity costs, the money you didn't make because you were too busy protecting the money you had. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine two farmers. Farmer A stores his seeds in a vault. They're safe, counted, organized, but they're just sitting there. Farmer B plants his seeds, takes on the risk of weather, pests, uncertainty, but at the end of the season, he has a harvest. Farmer A still has his original seeds. Farmer B has multiplied his resources many times over. Which farmer is actually better off? The one who protected his seeds or the one who put them to work? Your savings account is the vault. It protects your seeds, but it doesn't grow them. It doesn't even maintain them because inflation is eating a small percentage every year. The investment account is the field. It's riskier in the short term, but it's the only way to actually grow wealth over time. Most people spend their entire lives being Farmer A, protecting their seeds, watching them slowly lose value, never understanding why they can't get ahead. The fifth and final pattern is the wage illusion. This one ties everything together, and it explains why saving feels even more futile than the math suggests. Here's what happens. You get a raise, let's say 3%. You feel good, you're making progress in your career, your income is growing. But if inflation is also 3%, you didn't actually get a raise, you got nothing. You're running in place. Your paycheck number went up, but your purchasing power stayed exactly the same. Now, here's where this connects to saving. You think, okay, I'll just save that raise. 3% more income means 3% more savings. But you're saving money that has the same purchasing power as before. You're not getting ahead, you're treading water, and the water is slowly rising. This is why so many people feel like they work harder every year but never build wealth, because their raises barely keep pace with inflation. And when they save those raises, inflation eats the savings too. It's a double erosion. Your income erodes, then your savings erode. You're being attacked from both sides. Think about someone who makes $50,000 a year. After 10 years of 3% raises, they're making about $67,000. That feels like huge progress, 34% more money. But if inflation averaged 3% over that decade, their purchasing power only increased if they got raises above 3%. And most people don't. Most people get raises that roughly match inflation, or less. So after 10 years of hard work, career advancement, and diligent saving, they're basically in the same place, just with bigger numbers that mean the same thing. This is the wage illusion. We see nominal increases, we miss real stagnation, and this is why saving alone will never build wealth, because you're saving currency that's constantly losing value from a source, your wages, that's barely keeping up with that loss. You're trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it, using a hose that's barely trickling. It's not a character flaw, it's not poor discipline, it's mathematics working against you. Now, here's what nobody wants to admit, and this might be uncomfortable to hear. The traditional advice to save money isn't actually designed to make you wealthy. It's designed to keep you stable, to prevent you from being destitute. And there's a big difference. The financial establishment, banks, traditional advisors, they benefit from you keeping money in savings accounts. That's how banks make money. They pay you 0.5%. They lend it out at 5%. They pocket the difference. They need your deposits. So they frame savings as responsible, smart, safe, the right thing to do. And it is responsible compared to spending everything you earn. compared to going into debt, compared to having nothing. But responsible isn't the same as optimal. It's not the same as wealth building. Here's the truth that makes people uncomfortable. The path to actual wealth has always been the same. You have to own assets that appreciate faster than inflation. Not currency, assets. Real estate, stocks, businesses, these are things that tend to grow in value over time, and importantly, they tend to grow faster than inflation over the long run. Why? Because they're productive. A business generates profit, real estate generates rent, stocks represent ownership in companies that create value. Currency just sits there. It's not productive. It doesn't generate anything. It's a tool for transactions, not a tool for wealth building. This is why every wealthy person you've ever heard of got wealthy through assets, not through saving cash. Warren Buffett didn't save his way to billions. He invested in businesses. Jeff Bezos didn't have a really good savings account. He built a company. Your wealthy neighbor didn't get rich from their emergency fund. They bought real estate or built a business or invested consistently over decades. But we don't talk about this clearly enough because it sounds risky. It sounds complicated. It sounds like something only smart people or lucky people can do. So instead, we tell average people to save, to be responsible, to keep cash for safety. And then we wonder why the wealth gap keeps growing. The people who understand assets get richer. The people who only understand savings get left behind. Not because they're lazy, not because they're not trying, because they're following advice that's designed for stability, not growth. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus is 32 years old. He's got a decent job making $60,000 a year. He's been following traditional financial advice perfectly for the last 8 years. He saves 10% of his income religiously. That's $6,000 a year. Over 8 years, he's accumulated about $50,000 in his savings account. He's proud of this. His parents are proud. He did everything right. But here's what Marcus doesn't realize. That $50,000 he saved has lost about $12,000 in purchasing power due to inflation over those 8 years. In today's dollars, his savings are worth about $38,000. So he saved $6,000 a year for 8 years. That's $48,000 saved. And it's worth $38,000 today. He basically worked and sacrificed to lose $10,000 in real terms. Meanwhile, Marcus has been nervous about investing. The stock market seems risky, complicated. He doesn't understand it, so he's stuck with what felt safe. Every month, he looks at his savings account balance. Feels good about the number going up. Doesn't realize he's losing ground. Marcus is now worried about buying a house. Prices keep going up. His savings aren't keeping pace. He feels like he's doing everything right, but somehow falling behind. He blames the housing market, the economy, his salary. He doesn't realize the real problem is that he's been storing his wealth in a melting ice cube for almost a decade. Marcus represents millions of people, hardworking, responsible, doing exactly what they were told, and losing purchasing power every single year. Now let me tell you about Jennifer. Jennifer is also 32. She also makes about $60,000 a year. She also saves 10% of her income, $6,000 annually. But here's what Jennifer does differently. She keeps $3,000 in a savings account, enough for small emergencies, enough to feel secure. The other $47,000 she's saved over 8 years, she's been investing it. Simple index funds, nothing fancy, nothing complicated, just consistent investing in broad market funds. Jennifer was nervous at first too. The market goes up and down. It feels risky, but she understood something Marcus didn't. The risk of doing nothing is higher than the risk of investing. Over those same 8 years, with market growth averaging around 10% annually, Jennifer's investments have grown to about $90,000. After accounting for inflation, that's about $75,000 in today's money. Same income, same savings rate, but Jennifer has $75,000 in real purchasing power. Marcus has $38,000. That's a $37,000 difference in just 8 years from the same salary, the same discipline, just a different understanding of how money works. Jennifer isn't smarter than Marcus. She isn't luckier. She doesn't have a finance degree. She just understood that holding cash guarantees you lose to inflation, while owning assets gives you a fighting chance to win. When Jennifer looks at housing prices, she's not falling behind. Her wealth has grown faster than home prices. She has options, flexibility, real wealth, not just nominal savings. Here's what makes the difference even more dramatic. Over the next 10 years, if both continue the same path, Marcus might have $80,000 saved, but it'll be worth maybe $60,000 in today's money. Jennifer will likely have over $250,000, worth maybe $200,000 in today's money. Same effort, same discipline, completely different outcomes. And it all comes down to understanding one thing: inflation destroys savers, but it's neutral or even beneficial to asset owners. Here's what most people don't realize, and this is the key to everything. Saving and investing aren't two different strategies for building wealth. They're two completely different activities with opposite outcomes. Saving is preserving currency, investing is acquiring assets. Currency loses value over time. Assets gain value over time. Saving feels safe but guarantees erosion. Investing feels risky but provides growth. The difference wasn't about Marcus being less disciplined than Jennifer. It wasn't about Jennifer being smarter or more financially savvy. The difference was this: Marcus thought he was building wealth. Jennifer understood she was buying assets. Marcus focused on accumulating dollars. Jennifer focused on accumulating ownership. And here's the really important part. This isn't about taking huge risks. It's not about gambling. It's not about stock picking or crypto or get-rich-quick schemes. It's about understanding that money is a tool, not a treasure. You don't hoard tools. You use them. You put them to work. Jennifer put her money to work buying tiny pieces of thousands of companies. Companies that employ people, create products, generate profits, grow over time. Marcus let his money sit idle, doing nothing, creating nothing, just slowly losing value. One of these approaches aligns with how economies actually work. The other fights against economic reality. And here's the thing: once you see this, you can't unsee it. Every dollar sitting in a savings account becomes visible as a small, slow leak in your financial boat. It doesn't mean you should have zero savings. Some cash for immediate needs makes sense, but the bulk of your wealth, it needs to be in assets that grow, not currency that shrinks. This reframe changes everything. You stop asking, should I save more? You start asking, what assets should I own? You stop feeling good about account balances. You start thinking about purchasing power. You stop seeing the stock market as a scary casino. You start seeing it as the only realistic way to outpace inflation over time. The melting money illusion, the safety paradox, the emergency fund trap, comparison blindness, the wage illusion. These aren't character flaws. They're not signs you're bad with money. They're predictable patterns that happen to everyone who doesn't understand how inflation actually works. The question isn't whether you can beat inflation. You can't. Not by saving. Savings accounts will always lose to inflation over time. That's just math. The real question is this: will you keep playing a game that's designed for you to lose, or will you start playing a different game entirely? Because here's what I want you to understand. Wealthy people don't have better savings accounts. They have better assets. They don't save more money. They own more things that produce money. They're not smarter. They're not luckier. They just understand that you can't save your way to wealth in an inflationary world. You can only invest your way there. Your savings account isn't keeping your money safe. It's just keeping your money. While inflation makes it worth less every single day, the stability you feel, it's an illusion. The real danger isn't market volatility. It's the slow, invisible, guaranteed erosion of your purchasing power while you sit still. So here's my challenge to you. Look at your savings account, really look at it, and ask yourself honestly, is this building wealth, or is this just letting my hard-earned money slowly melt away? Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, you'll finally be ready to do something different. Your future self will thank you, not for saving more, but for understanding that in a world with inflation, saving is losing, and investing is the only way to win.